Welcome to Sports Talk with R&J. I'm Steve Risser along here with Justin D'Onofrio, and we are here. The quarterfinals in college football start tomorrow night. We got a rematch of a game from years ago, a national title game from years ago between Miami and Ohio State. That starts it. And we got three great matchups on Thursday. So a great day of football, awesome day of football on Thursday. But we're gonna start with tomorrow night. We're gonna start tomorrow night with the with Miami and Ohio State. And before we predict the game, we're gonna talk about what each team needs to do to win the game. We'll start with Miami. And for me, what's been Miami's bread and butter all year? Getting pressure with Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor. That's been their bread and butter. They had 7 sacks against A&M. That's what they got to do to Ohio State. I think that's the number one thing is they got to get pressure. They got to find a way to get pressure, win that battle up front because Julian Saint got sacked 5 times in the Big Ten championship game. They only scored 10 points. They got to find a way to do that. Number 2, get the run game going with Mark Fletcher. He had 172 rushing yards against Texas A&M. A big reason why they got past A&M was they were able to run the ball better than A&M was able to run the ball. So they got to get the run game going with Mark Fletcher. And then number 3, like you always do when you play Ohio State, contain Jeremiah Smith. Contain Jeremiah Smith. If you got to get the tight end beat you, Cleary. If you got to let Carnell Tate beat you, so be it. But you don't want to get beat by Jeremiah Smith, so contain Jeremiah Smith. Justin, those are my 3 keys for Ohio State. What are your 3 keys for Ohio State? Or for Miami. For Miami.
Yeah, my 3 for the Canes. I have the same one as you to start off here is, have to rush the passer. We saw it against the Indiana game where Saint really struggled. And even week 1, go back to Texas, probably the second best passer they saw all year. And week 1, it was his first start. But he really struggled in that one as well. So if Miami can get after him, give him some happy feet, they got a chance of this one. Number 2, Beck has to take care of the football because he's another quarterback that he tends to panic when guys are in his face and, when the pass rush gets after him, and Ohio State can do that to you. So they need Beck to play well. And my 3rd one is get off to a good start because I think there's a good chance this is this Ohio State team that we saw from last year in the playoffs where they kind of they started playing with more tempo. They really put their foot down in the gas. You fall down 14-0 behind the Ohio State. Carson Beck, and that's the way Ohio State's defense is playing, you're not coming back from a deficit like that against that defense. And I don't have enough trust in Carson Beck to get you back against down 14 early against that Ohio State defense. So for me, pass rush, Beck's got to take care of the football and good start.
Yep, those are good ones. Those are really, really good ones. And now for Ohio State, for Ohio State, they got to obviously protect Julian Saint. They cannot let this Miami pass rush of Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor take over the game, just like the pass rush of Indiana did in the Big Ten championship game. They cannot allow that to happen. Because one of the weaknesses of Ohio State this year, probably the biggest weakness of their entire team has been their offensive line. They can't have that be a weakness in this game because they could get upset. So they got to make sure they contain those 2 pass rushers. Run the ball with Bo Jackson. Run the ball with him. That would to negate that pass rush. They're able to run the ball with him and contain Mark Fletcher because if they're able to contain Mark Fletcher and they're able to force. You brought it up with Carson Beck making mistakes. If they're able to force Miami to be one-dimensional, Matt Patricia's defense, I think, could force Carson Beck to make mistakes because Miami very easy didn't. There was a good Miami lost to Louisville because Carson Beck threw 4 picks. So containing the run game is key, and force Carson Beck to make mistakes. That is the key there. So those are my 3 keys for Ohio State. What are your 3 keys for Ohio State, Justin?
My 2 is for the first one is stop the running game of Miami because that they had a good amount of success in the second half. Miami did against A&M, and they kind of figured out that they could kind of be able to use that to their advantage. So for Ohio State, make Carson Beck in that offense one-dimensional. Number 2 is slow down Miami's pass rush because just kind of mentioned it because actually I'll go with it because if Saint gets time. I think Smith, Cardell Tate, Matt Clare, I think got a big game in the tight end because I don't think Miami is great in the back end. Like I think their secondary is improved, but I don't think it's great. I think
it's not even. It's not close to what not close to what it is up front. It's up front is the strength of Miami's defense. Yes. They showed that in that game in that first game, and they had 7 sacks against A&M.
Yes, so absolutely. So that's why, if Saint can get time, I do think he can expose the secondary and have a pretty good game. Then my 3rd one is always kind of have eyes on Malachi Tone because they'll get him the ball multiple ways. They'll use him in the backfield. They'll get him off on some sweeps. They'll get, again, I think if Miami wants to win this game, he's going to need 10 targets or just touch the football 10 to 15 times. So for Ohio State, just be aware where he is and where he's lined up on the field because he can be a difference maker in a game like this. He's been a phenomenal freshman, and he definitely has the impact to be a difference maker and beat you. And for Ohio State, that's like the one guy if you can really kind of lock him down, feel pretty good.
Oh yeah, you made a great point with Malachi Tony. You made an excellent point with Malachi Tony because you could use him on jet sweeps. You could use him on end arounds. He's the guy. Yeah, because he could. If your running game's not working with Fletcher, you could use him on some jet sweeps. So that's a really good point about Malachi Tony. Really good point about Malachi Tony.
Yeah, because he's been one of the best freshmen in the country. I know Sane got the award of the Sean Alexander Freshman of the Year award, but Malachi Tony is right there in the voting, and he's been a huge part of this Miami offense. So he's a special player, and he's gonna be fun to watch the next couple of years. But Ohio State, keep him in check. Gotta feel pretty good about their chances.
You definitely do. Now getting to the game. And getting to the game, I think this is a game that Miami stays competitive early. But I just don't think they're going to be able to score enough points. Just like against Texas, they scored 10 against Texas A&M. 10 is not going to get it done against Ohio State because their offense is clearly better. And I think that Bo Jackson's going to play well. I think Sane will get pressure on him, but they'll be able to move the ball. I don't think they're going to score a ton of touchdowns. Ohio State, I think they'll kick field goals. I think both teams are going to get pressure on their quarterbacks, but I'm going to go with the quarterback that's going to play better. And I think Julian Sane is going to turn the ball over less, and he's going to outplay Carson Beck. And that's why I got Ohio State winning this one. I got them getting back to the semifinals. I got them winning by double digits. I got Ohio State 23-10 over Miami. But Justin, can the Canes pass rush lead them to an upset win in the Cotton Bowl?
No, I'm with you here. I got the Ohio State 24-13. I do think we're going to see the Ohio State team last year in the playoffs where they were a buzzsaw. They played with more tempo because even last year in the regular season, they didn't play with tempo at all. And then in the playoffs, they started to use it. They started to go a little bit more because they're one of the slowest teams in the country. I think you're going to see that again because Ryan Day's back to being the play caller. I think Julian Sane plays well enough in this one. I do think, Jeremiah Smith has a pretty big game. And I do think Ohio State's defense bugs Carson Beck. And I do think he has a rough game. So I do think Ohio State wins this game by at least 2 possessions. I just don't see Beck have too much success against this Ohio State defense.
Yeah, you're right about that. And it's a loaded defense with 2 top 10, top 5 picks with Reese and Downs. And don't forget about Styles in the middle, and Caden Curry. This defense is the right. Them in Indiana, 2 top defenses, and Texas Tech, top 3 defenses. They're top 3 defenses. This is the top 3 defense in the country, and I think they're going to prove it tomorrow night in Dallas.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they absolutely will. They're great, and Patricia's done a great job with this team, and kind of said it early on, like maybe early on in the year, like Ohio State, like that defense is really good, and I think we're gonna know a couple of more of these guys' names outside of Downs by the end of the year, and we definitely have because Ohio State just does a great job developing talent.
One's gonna get drafted higher than Downs in the draft, and Averill Reese.
Yeah, which I don't think anybody really thought that would happen coming into the year. So Reese has been unbelievable. That's just Ohio State just reloads, and they do a great job of those 5. They hit on those 5 stars, it seems like every single time, or most of them.
Because the funny thing is, when we watched the Texas game, I think the average fan, all they really knew were 2 players: Caleb Downs and 3 players: Caleb Downs, Julian Sane, and Jeremiah Smith, obviously. But we've now learned a lot more as this season has gone on because of how well their defense have played, and their offense have been pretty good too.
Yeah, the offense has been pretty good. Yeah, you mentioned it earlier. The offensive line hasn't been as good, and that has affected the running game. And they usually have great backs. I know that CJ Donaldson pickup, West Virginia hasn't panned out the way that they thought it would this year. But that's been their one weakness, and they're decent enough at it where they can kind of keep you off balance with it. And I guess that's all you kind of really need. But if the team can get that rush attack going, it's such a dangerous team.
Absolutely. So big game tomorrow night, New Year's Eve night. We got the Cotton Bowl between Miami and Ohio State. But we will move on to the first game on New Year's Day, and that is the Orange Bowl between Oregon and Texas Tech. First, before we get into the game, we'll talk about what each team has to do to win the game. We'll start with Oregon. And for me, they obviously need to protect Dante Moore. He was sacked 6 times against Indiana, and it showed because he threw 2 picks in that game. So they got to protect Dante Moore. That's number 1. Number 2, contain Cameron Dickey. That's their best player. Cameron Dickey is Texas Tech's best player on offense. He had over 1,000 rushing yards. They got to be able to contain him. So they got to be able to contain Cameron Dickey, and they got to get the running game going themselves by committee with Davidson, with Hill, with Whittingham. They got to get the running game going themselves. So those are my 3 keys for Oregon win. What are your 3 keys for Oregon win, Justin?
Yeah, for me, their 3 keys got to establish the running game. Down the stretch, they really started to get that going, and Texas Tech all year has been tough to run the football against. So if you can establish that running game, Ducks would be in really good shape. Number 2 for the Ducks, can they block Texas Tech? And I've actually, when we talked about Texas Tech before this year, like most of those Big 12 teams could not block Texas Tech at all. Oregon, they struggled at times. Like the top 3 defensive fronts that they faced all year, Penn State, Iowa, Indiana, they kind of struggled in all 3 of those games. So can Texas Tech be a different, can their defensive front be a difference in this one? And my 3rd one is, don't turn the football over, because Tech's been great at forcing turnovers this year. They forced 31 on the year. Dante Moore's been pretty good about protecting the football this year. But even like Tech's forced like 31 fumbles. They've recovered like 15 of them. So even in that sense, just making sure you got 2 hands of the football. Doing stuff like that, because Tech does a great job of making you pay for mistakes like that.
They definitely do. They did. You're right about that. They definitely do. Now move on to what Texas. Move on to what Tech has to do to win this game. And first, it's get pressure on Dante Moore with David Bailey and AJ Holmes. Get pressure on Dante Moore. And you talked about it, the 3 lines they face, especially Indiana. I think Indiana gave them the most trouble. I can't really speak to Iowa as much because I didn't watch a ton of that Iowa game, but I think against Penn State, I think they protected him. It wasn't like they were protecting him a ton again. They were like, it wasn't a wall behind Dante Moore. They did a decent job protecting him against Penn State, because Oregon outplayed Penn State for the majority of that game. Then Penn State, almost came back and won, but yeah, I guess yeah. So they got to protect. Yeah, they got to get Texas Tech. Got to get pressure on Dante Moore. Number 2, Baron Morton has got to protect the ball. He only has 4 picks this year. He's got to protect the football. And number 3, obviously, got to get Cameron Dickey going. He's your best offensive player. Got to get him going. And if you're going to advance to the semifinals, they got to get him going. Justin, what are your keys to a Texas Tech win on Thursday in the Orange Bowl?
For me, defense front has to be that difference maker. You talked about it. I talked about it with Oregon having to slow them down. They've been so good all year, Texas Tech, and they're top 3 in the country in that sense with defensive line. So, for them, their defensive front's got to be difference maker. Make Dante Moore. Dante Moore, I feel like when he gets out of the pocket is still a pretty good player, but if you can get some pressure on him, have a guy right there, maybe it makes a mistake or 2. And number 2 for me, Texas Tech secondary, I do think it's the weakness of their defense. Now, Connor Whiteman threw for like 345 against them. I think that was most all year, but like, this is the best quarterback and weapons combo that they've seen all year, Texas Tech. So I don't love their secondary. They spent a lot more money on building that defensive line, which is panned out for them. Not as much in the secondary. So could this be a game where Oregon can kind of expose that? And number 3 for the Red Raiders, they got to hit on the explosive plays, because I don't think Morton and that offense will be able to go on sustain long drives against Oregon's defense. I do think Oregon's defense play a lot better than they did against James Madison. So I just don't, because I think Morton's a decent quarterback. I don't think he's a national championship level quarterback. So I think Texas got to hit on some explosive plays in this one to beat Oregon.
You talk about Oregon's defense, and they give up 34 points to James Madison. Yeah, they're not going to do that. I expect Oregon's defense to come out and play really, really well in this game. I definitely do. Now, this isn't a great defense. They gave up 30 points to Indiana. Penn State, they almost gave the game away. They're up 17-3 in the 4th quarter. They almost gave that game away. So this isn't a great defense. This is a really good defense with, you got Uiagalelei, you got, DJ Uiagalelei's brother, you got, Betcher, you got the linebacker Betcher, you got Demon, the safety. So this is who made the pick against Penn State and the whiteout game. So this is a good defense. So yeah, you definitely talked about they will be playing better in this game. But as you kind of said, the game's probably going to come down to is Texas Tech's offensive line going to be able to is Oregon's offensive line going to be able to protect Texas Tech's pass rush? Because you talked about it, Texas Tech. Oregon's pretty good everywhere in their defense, but you talked about it. Texas Tech isn't as good in the secondary. And if they protect Dante Moore, it could be a tough day for Texas Tech's defense because Oregon's got pass catchers. Shadik, the tight end, is good. DeCarrion Moore, he's the freshman. He's pretty good. He's pretty good too. So I think you're right. You hit the nail right on the head. It's going to come down to Oregon's offensive line. The key to this game, what this game is probably going to come down to, is Oregon's offensive line against Texas Tech's defensive line. Because I don't think Tech is going to score more than 24, but they could hold Oregon to under 24.
Yeah, absolutely. And because Texas Tech's defense has been really good, and Oregon's defense. Like, I expect Dan Lanning that was a total wake up call for them, and I think Dan Lanning, was not happy they gave up that many points, but I think he liked to use that as a tool. So I think you're going to see Oregon's, because I just don't think Texas Tech have a great offensive game. So Texas Tech defense has got to win a low scoring battle here, and Oregon might get back Evan Stewart this week. He's been on all year. He's one of the best wide receivers when healthy in the country. Now, how much is he really going to play? I don't know, but just to have another weapon like that on the field could be huge for the Ducks. So he is somebody to look out for. Maybe he can make an impact on this game if he does end up going, but sounds like there's a chance. So that's another one for the Ducks. Because if Oregon can expose this Texas Tech secondary, could definitely be a long day, because Texas Tech's not winning a shootout against this Ducks team.
No, they're definitely not. There's no way. There's no way they're winning there. There's no way they're winning a shootout against this team. So as you said, it's going to come down to the defensive front of Texas Tech versus the offensive line of Oregon. Now for the game, I think the Texas Tech defensive front is going to win, because I don't think they're going to score more than 24 points. I think they're going to score 23 points. I think Dickey will get enough yards on the ground. I don't think Morton will turn the ball over, but I think this front is going to be the difference. I think they're going to force a turnover or two from Dante Moore. I think they are. I think Texas Tech, the reason they'll win the game is their defense will play better and their running game will be better. I think that's what's going to happen. They're going to run the football better, and they're going to play better defense. It's going to be close, competitive, but I'm going to go with Texas Tech here to get to the semifinal. I'm going to go with Texas Tech by a field goal. I'm going Tech over Oregon 23-20. But Justin, can Oregon avenge their loss last year in the quarterfinals and get to the semifinals?
I think they do. I got the Ducks 24-17 in this one. I think too, you just mentioned the playoff experience too. I think that's going to help Oregon. That they've kind of been in this position before. They know how to handle it. Like Texas Tech, this is the biggest game in school history. Is there nerves early? Do they come out a little anxious? Do they make a mistake or two early? I think that could be a difference maker in this game too. So I do like the Ducks. I do think Texas Tech hasn't faced a quarterback or weapons like this all year. And I do think that's a difference maker in this one. I think Texas Tech's a really good football team. But I think it's a little bit of a wake-up call for them here. And I do think the Ducks are able to overcome, as long as they're healthy, which sounds like they're going to be more healthy than they've been in the last couple of weeks. So I do like the Ducks here. And interesting to see what the crowd is going to be like in Miami too. Because I think you're going to have more Red Raider fans, but because I think you're going to see a good chunk of empty seats. Because
really, wow,
it's a tough. Because for Oregon, they can't be any easy trip from Eugene to Miami.
But there's got to be it's a playoff game. It's college. It's not a bowl game. It's a playoff game. So I think it's going to be sold.
No, it is. It is. I don't know if it'd be sold out. I really don't. I haven't seen. I haven't actually looked at the tickets yet, but I'm a little surprised because it's like Oregon Texas Tech too. So I don't know how many of the locals will show up because it's not. I know Oregon's like a good brand, but it's not like a Texas and Notre Dame. So I wonder too how the crowd's gonna be like early, 12 o'clock click on New Year's Day. So I wonder too, but I think Tech will have a little bit of an edge for the home crowd.
Yeah, it should be a very interesting game between the two teams. It should be a great game. It should be a really competitive game. It could be the most competitive game of the four. So should be a very interesting game between Texas Tech and Oregon on Thursday afternoon. Now we'll move on to the granddaddy of them all in the Rose Bowl. You got Alabama trying to get to the semifinals for the 9th time. We'll see the college football semifinals first under Kalen DeBoer, though. Wouldn't be the first time Kalen DeBoer got to the semis. He did get to the national title game 2 years ago with Washington against Kursignetti in Iowa and Heisman Trophy winner Fernando Mendoza. Now, Mendoza, it's the national stage for him. So Mendoza will be on the net, pretty much on the net. I know we played the 8 o'clock Big Ten championship game, but for me, this is the first time where really the whole world's going to be able to watch him. So it should be really exciting for Fernando Mendoza playing this game for IU. It should be really exciting. First, we'll get to what each team has to do to win the game. We'll start with Alabama. We'll start with what Bama has to do to win the game. And for me, Ty Simpson's got to be really good. He was really good against Oklahoma. He's got to really continue to be really good to beat a team like Indiana. Number 2, get pressure on Mendoza. force Mendoza to make mistakes. And they got 5 sacks against Oklahoma in the first round game, so they got to get pressure on Mendoza. And then number 3, contain Sarai. He's their best receiver. Contain him. If Cooper has to beat you, he beats you. If not, you got to contain Sarai. So I think that those are my 3 keys for Alabama. Justin, what are your 3 keys for Alabama?
My 3 for Alabama. This one is defensively. How does Bama play against this RPO heavy team? They like to play a lot of zone coverage. Do they play more man this week? I know Mendoza's not a guy that takes off and run a lot, but do they kind of change how they play in coverage this week? Kind of interested how they handle that. Number 2 for me is we mentioned Ty Simpson. His first 9 games this year, he had 1 interception. The last 5, he's had 4. He's not. I don't know. There's a rumor going around before the playoff game against Oklahoma that he's been injured. That's kind of why he hasn't played it up to the level he did the kind of first 2 months of the year. So, how does Tyson look? Because they really need him to play well. In this one have a chance. And number 3, I know Ryan Williams has not had a great year. Like drops have been an issue. Can you use him as a gadget guy? Because when the ball's in his hands, he could be a special guy. He could be a special player. I know you got Horton. I know you have good guys out the outside, but Ryan Williams could be a special player with the ball in his hands. Can they use him as more of a gadget guy this game? Try to get him the ball in his hands, because that's when he could be so dangerous.
Yeah, Ryan Williams kind of had a down year, but yeah, if you could utilize him, that would be big. That would be big for Alabama. Now moving on to Indiana, what they got to do to win this game. Mendoza has got to continue to show why he won the Heisman. He's got to keep showing why he won the Heisman. Continue to play great. He's got to keep showing why he won the Heisman. Number 2, get the ground game going with Black and Henry. Get that ground game going. And number 3, get pressure on Ty Simpson, because when they've gotten pressure on quarterbacks, Julian Sayin and Dante Moore, that's been the reason they've won games. They get 5 sacks at Julian Sayin, 6 sacks at Dante Moore when they played. That's why Indiana won games. They've been able to get pressure on the quarterback. So if they do that to Ty Simpson, there's a very good chance they'll stay undefeated and get to the semifinals. Justin, what does Kurt Cignetti and Indiana got to do to get to the semifinals?
Yeah. For Indiana to get to the semifinals, this one, Indiana gives up some explosive plays in the passing game. You can't do that against Bama with some of the weapons. I don't, Ryan Williams, Horton, those guys. You can't give up the explosive plays of Bama. That'll be a problem. Number 2, Mendoza, carve up Alabama, because in their secondary against Alabama against that Oklahoma about a week ago, Mateer had a bunch of wide open guys that he just did not hit. I don't think Mendoza's going to miss those types of guys. So Mendoza's got to take advantage of that and hit the open receivers. My 3rd one is get after Simpson. That O-line has not been great for Alabama all year. And IU's had 39 sacks in the year. I think Bama's given up like 29. So for Indiana, they can get after Simpson. If he's banged up too, you hit him a couple times. Indiana be feeling pretty good about themselves.
Oh, yeah. If they can get pressure for Simpson, I think they've got a very, very good chance to win the game. Speaking of pressure, and there's been a lot of rumors about Kalen DeBoer, taking the mid. Now, those are over because Michigan just hired Kyle Whittingham. But how much pressure is on Kalen DeBoer to win this game? I think there isn't as much as there was against Oklahoma. I think that he won a game. I think he's starting to be accepted more by the Alabama fans. But, Justin, how much pressure do you think is on Kalen DeBoer to win this game?
I think because you're at Bama, it's always national championship or bust there. But I think because he's gone in the playoffs, he won a game. I do think the seat's a little bit cooler. But again, he could lose week 1 next year to, I think they play Florida State week 2. If they lose to Florida State again, he'll be right back in the hot seat. So the Alabama, you can't get too comfortable unless you're Nick Saban. But I don't think he's going anywhere. I think because he's gone in the playoffs, they've won a game. I know the SEC minds can't comprehend Alabama being a 7-point dog this week to be in Alabama. But Indiana's a better football team, so if they stick around, as long as they don't lose by 3 scores, Alabama fans are always gonna be mad when you lose. So, but I don't think the seat's that hot. I don't think there's a ton of pressure on because he's won a game already.
Yeah, I don't think the seat's hot at all because they already want to playoff. If they lost that game to Oklahoma, he might be the coach of Michigan right now. Who knows? But yeah, I don't think the seat's hot. I think he'll definitely be. I'll be shocked if he's not back next year. I don't think the seat's really hot for DeBoer anymore. Yeah, they want to play. They proved that they belonged. They proved they belonged in the playoff by winning that game.
Yeah, they did. They did. I don't think Oklahoma's great shakes either, and Oklahoma wouldn't have been in if Alabama didn't turn the football over 4 times the first meeting. So, and Oklahoma kind of costed themselves at this game. So, yeah, Alabama battled back down 17-0. So, look, it's a football team that's got a bunch of flaws, but yeah, they dug themselves out a 17-point deficit on the road, and gotta be a great football team to do that.
Oh, absolutely. You definitely got to be down 17-0, coming back, getting that turnover on defense, winning that game. So yeah, that was a huge win for Alabama. And looking at it for Indiana with Fernando Mendoza, this is his first time on this really on the national stage. It'd be interesting to see how he responds, being this really, the Heisman Trophy winner now playing in the Rose Bowl, and this is gonna be the most watched game. I think of the 4 games. It's gonna be interesting to see what he does on the big stage, on the Rose Bowl stage.
Yeah, will because that Ohio State game, he made a couple good throws. So like, I didn't think he was totally fantastic. Like, the Penn State game, I know Gus Johnson at the time, said it was his Heisman moment, but the wide receiver kind of bailed him out on that touchdown. Um, I think he's a really good quarterback. He's done a really good job. He's got all kind of the tools and everything to be a franchise quarterback at the next level. But yeah, it's kind of really the first time. I know a lot of people. I don't remember what the ratings was for Ohio State game because I know Duke Virginia was on the same time, so I know the majority of the people are probably watching this. But yeah, now this is the first time he's in a real standalone game here. So, and you're going against Bama. I know it's not the same Bama team, but Alabama still holds a lot of weight. So you go out there, you throw 4 touchdowns and throw for 350 against Alabama, you're going to get a ton of praise because you just did that against Alabama. So yeah, it's a big stage, and we'll see. And I do think he plays pretty well. They got the weapons. Omar Cooper should be good to go. It sounds like he's gonna be back for this game too, so that will help out as well.
All righty. So for the game, I think Mendoza on this big stage plays really well. I think those 2 or 3 touchdown passes. I think they run the ball well. I think Simpson plays well too. I think he makes that big turnover because I think Indiana gets more pressure on Simpson than Bama does on Mendoza. And I think Simpson makes that big turnover, and I'm going to go with IU here. I'm going to go with Indiana to advance to the semifinals and stay undefeated. I got Indiana 28-20 over Bama. But Justin, can Bama win the Rose Bowl, and get to their 9th college football semifinal?
Now I got the Hoosiers as well, 28-17 here. Biggest underdog right now for Alabama since that 08 SC change game against Florida. So Alabama's not usually much in this role, and I know the SEC minds can't comprehend that. Indiana's a 7-point favorite against this Crimson Tide, but it's for a reason. This Indiana team's a really good football team, and I think they prove it. I think they win this game 28-17. I don't think there's any flukiness about this Indiana team, and the weather might not be great either. Chance to be very cloudy and a good chance of rain.
If it rains, advantage Indiana because they run the football better.
Oh yeah. Yep, absolutely. Because that'd
be weird if it's raining.
Yeah,
I can't remember the last time there was rain in the Rose Bowl.
I don't either.
Yeah,
I don't either. I know I don't think in my lifetime it has, or at least I can't remember. So yeah, it's been a while. Now I know they love that beautiful sunset, but I don't think we'll be getting to see that on heading the fourth quarter on Thursday.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what ends up happening there. Should be a very interesting game between those 2 teams. It should be. But I think Indiana and Fernando Mendoza pulls it out and they get to the semifinal. Now the final game of the day, an SEC matchup, a rematch from Week 8, where Georgia beat Ole Miss 43-35. We got Ole Miss and Georgia, and it's fitting that if you get an all SEC quarterfinal, it's in the Sugar Bowl. It's fitting that this game is in the Sugar Bowl, so should be a really exciting game between these 2 teams in the Sugar Bowl. And we'll start with keys to the game. We'll start for Georgia, and for me, it's don't force Chambliss to beat you with his legs. Last game they played, he had 2 touchdown runs. He ran for 42 yards. Don't force him to beat you with his legs. Number 2, Stockton has to continue to be great. If he can continue to be great, this team, there's a great chance they're going to win this game. And then number 3, get the running game going with Bowers and Frazier. They did the first game against Ole Miss. If they do it this time, they should be in really good shape against Ole Miss. Justin, what are your 3 keys to Georgia avenging their loss in the Sugar Bowl from last year?
My 3 keys for Georgia is slow down Lacey in this matchup. He's banged up, but it sounds like he's going to give it a go here. He only had 12 carries the first meeting for 31 yards. So Lacey's one of the best backs in the country. make sure he's not the reason why you lose this football game. Number two, yeah, Gunnar Stockton continues to play great football. That Ole Miss game was probably his best game. Um, that he's had. So and he tore him up, and he's played pretty well in big spots. So I know last year in that during the in game he didn't, but this year he's played pretty well in the big moments. So I expect him to play great. And three, keep them clean because they're not going to have their center Drew Bobo in this one. And there's they got a makeshift offensive line in the first meeting. Ole Miss, I don't think. They didn't get a sack, I don't believe. So they kept them clean the first time. I know that without Bobo has been huge because the last 6 quarters without him, the offense hasn't looked great. But hoping with this extra time off, their offense looks a little bit better this week. So, but with that makeshift offensive line, just make sure Ole Miss can wreak havoc.
Yeah, and Bobo, is that the son of the? Is he related to the offensive coordinator?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, because Bobo gets a lot of criticism at Georgia. He gets a lot of criticism.
He does. They don't like him. Well,
no.
if Tom Monkey gets let go at Baltimore, I think Georgia fans would be pondering to have him back.
Come back. Yeah, they'll probably come back. Yeah. So
yeah.
We'll see. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty much going to be if they can protect Stockton, they could contain the running game. They should be in really good shape. And this leads to my first point for Ole Miss to win the game. And for me, they got to get Kewan Lacey going. They got to get Kewan Lacey going. He did not have a good game the first time he faced them. I know he had 2 touchdowns, but he was not a difference in the running game, and he needs to be if they're going to win this game. Number 2, they got to get pressure on Gunnar Stockton. They got to get pressure, as you said. Their center is out. If they can get some sort of pressure on Gunnar Stockton, that could be big. And then contain the running game of Georgia. Contain the running game of Bowens and Frazier. Contain that running game. And if they do that, if they do that, they'll have a chance to pull the upset here. What are your keys for Ole Miss to pull the upset?
Yeah, for me, actually, I did look it up. Drew Bobo is the OC son, Mike Bobo. So it is. Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, for going back to Ole Miss here, my 3 keys is first one's a coaching one. Pete Golding's he's a DC. Now he's the permanent head coach now. How does he coach this game being a defensive-minded guy? Because we've seen Ole Miss all year Lane Kiffin's always aggressive, maybe sometimes too aggressive. How much more conservative is Pete Golding than Lane Kiffin? I think, we're going to really find that out. They're aggressive against Tulane, but you're a big favorite at home. You can kind of play that way. How is it the first time he's got a 4th and 3 at the 50-yard line? Does he punt it? Tap, So that's going to be something that I think a key is how he manages his football game. Number 2, they almost blew it last time, but you got off to a great start. The way this Georgia team's been playing of late, the way they've made adjustments second half. Again, got to get off to a good start this one, and not fall behind. Where you could use Lacey, and that hopefully you kind of get some semblance of running game this time. So for Ole Miss, get off to a good start. Number 3 is cover Zachariah Branch. He has 73 catches on the year. He's a big gadget guy. Second most on Georgia, only has 27 catches. So that's been the go-to guy. So cover him. Make sure he's not the guy that beats you because Gunnar Stockton, I don't think he trusts the other guy, but Branch has been his go-to guy all year.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Yeah, they definitely should contain a Branch. And you brought up Pete Golding, which was a good point. You definitely brought up Pete Golding. You knew they weren't going to miss Lane Kiffin in the Tulane game. The big question is going into this game. The biggest question: how much is Ole Miss going to miss not having Lane Kiffin in this game?
Yeah, I think it could be a big factor because Lane Kiffin's a play caller too. Charlie Boyce is only, I believe, his second time calling plays. So now you're going up against Georgia. How does he do? How is he? Has he come out with the script? How aggressive is he? Because and then with Pete Golding, being a defensive-minded head coach, we sometimes see those guys be a lot more conservative. And how is he? And how does he play that? So, because I think Pete Golding's done a pretty good job with his defense. But the first time they got carved up, how many more adjustments can he make this week? For this game here. So I'm interested because I like Pete Golding. He's a really good recruiter, but he was at Alabama for a couple years. Alabama wanted him fired. Alabama fans want him fired. So he's fair to Ole Miss, but how does he do in a game like this against Georgia? It's only your second time being a head coach. So and you're playing Georgia, so in a quarterfinal game. So I'm interested to see it. Yeah, so it's going to be huge because Lane could be a little bit too aggressive. But again, you really want to punt a 4th and 3 at your 50-yard line? I don't know if he's going to do that, but that could be a big key in this game.
Yeah. I think it's big. I think it's big. I think it hurts him. I think Pete Golding. Yeah, no offense to him, Lane Kiffin. Say what you want about him. He's a really good football. He's a really good coach. Really good coach. He turned this Ole Miss program around. He turned it around, and you got to give him credit for it. He's and he's done a great. He did a great job. I know. I hate the way he left, like everyone, but he did a great job at Ole Miss. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal, and it definitely could hurt them going into this game. And now we'll go into this game, and I think that with 2 weeks off and with the major coaching advantage, I think Georgia wins this game, and I think they win it by 2 scores. I don't think Lacey does anything. I really don't. I don't think he does anything. I think they can. I think they have a spy on Chambliss. So I think their offense. I think Ole Miss's offense struggles here. I think Chambliss struggles in the spot, and I think Georgia's able to run the football. I think they control this game. They run the football. Gunnar Stockton throws a couple touchdown passes, and I got Georgia here. I got Georgia getting avenging what happened last year in the Sugar Bowl. I think they win here. I think they win by double digits. I got Georgia 30-17 over Ole Miss. But Justin, can Ole Miss get revenge from Week 8 and hand Georgia its second straight loss in the Sugar Bowl?
Now I'm going with the Bulldogs here as well, 31-16. I think Gunnar Stockton plays pretty well again this week against Ole Miss. I think he kind of tears them out. I think Branch has a pretty good game. I think Georgia's defensive line hasn't got a ton of pressure all year. Can they get any semblance of that this week? Would be kind of big. And Keon Lacey too, the running back. He's one of the best pass blocking running backs in the country. He's got a shoulder injury. How does he? How good is he in the pass blocking game with that shoulder? So if Jordan can get after Chambliss in this one, could be huge. I just think Georgia's a better football team, and I think you mentioned it with Lane Kiffin. I think it's there's a game where it definitely hurts them not having him on the sideline. So I think that's a difference. And Kirby Smart in this defense, and this defense has really played well the last month or so. They've really figured some things out. They've made some really good adjustments. I think Georgia continues that this week, and they win by 2 scores.
Yeah, I think Georgia wins. So I got Georgia. My semifinals are Indiana, next Texas Tech, and Georgia Ohio State. You got Indiana, Oregon, and Georgia Ohio State. So we both got that Georgia Ohio State matchup in semifinal.
Yeah, that should be a great game. I think both whoever Oregon, Georgia, the way Ohio State's Georgia's been playing, so. That one, and then that should be a good one. And then Indiana and whoever it is, Oregon or Texas. The Oregon Indiana game was pretty good. And I think Texas Indiana, two of the best pass rushers in the country going at it. So I think hopefully we get 2 really good semifinal matchups.
I think we should get 2 really, really good semis. So to wrap up, we got to talk about Kyle Whittingham and getting the job at Michigan. And I'll let you go first. But what are your thoughts on the Whittingham hire at Michigan?
I think they got an unbelievable hire for the position that they were in, and it's an obvious upgrade from Sherman Moore on the field. And I don't know if you read some of the off the field stuff and some of the reports that came out after he was fired. What he was doing 10 minutes before a football game or at halftime. A little busy. Sounds like DMing females. So during halftime and before, it's a miracle the team went 9-3.
I know. How did the team go 9-3? I mean, that shows you how good of a recruiter Harbaugh was.
Yeah.
They were able to a lot of those were his guys. They went 9-3.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, you're just getting a giant upgrade, and you're not going to get a guy who's going to leave you in 2 to 3 years that's going to leave you in a scandal or going to leave the way Moore did and, with the way he left. So he's only going to be there 2 to 3 years, but I think it's good as a candidate as Michigan could have gotten. So I really like to hire another, Urban Meyer assistant. So, Urban Meyer's now got assistant in Michigan, Ohio State, obviously. So be interesting there. But yeah, I think Winnie's done a great job at Utah. It'll be interesting to see how it translates and how he recruits now more at a national level in Michigan than he did at Utah. But I think it's a great hire. So I know next year their schedule is really difficult. Maybe they go 7-5, but I still think it's an upgrade. I think in 2 years they're gonna, and even Bryce Underwood, it sounds like he's gonna say, and if he brings his OC Tim Beck with him, I think Bryce Young is gonna do really good in that offense and get him a couple wide receivers. And from all accounts, too, it sounds like the DC Jay Hill from BYU is coming over with them. And I think Jay Hill is a really good defensive minded guy. So I think he's got bringing two really good candidates with him.
Oh yeah, I think this is a great hire for the position they're in. It's great. It's awesome because what Michigan is about is their offensive line running the football. What Utah is about is their offensive line running the football. This is pretty much like the Michigan of the Pac-12. They're now right now they're in the Big 12, but they were kind of the Michigan of the Pac-12 back when they were in the Pac-12. Play good defense, run the football. What does Michigan do? Play good defense, run the football. It's a perfect match. I think he's going to have success, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gives Ohio State some trouble with the physicality his teams are going to bring.
No, I wouldn't either. That should be it's always a great game, and they definitely could. The way their physicality, the way Kyle Williams' physicality is how physical his teams are. So, it usually does pretty good. Knocked off Watch a couple times at Utah. Those USC teams with Caleb Williams, they knocked them off twice, I believe. So, and they were really banged up that USC, that Pac-12 championship game. They were missing a bunch of guys. They still knocked them off. So, his teams usually put pretty well in the biggest moments. So, it's unbelievable hire. So yeah, those Ohio State games that could should be great ones.
They definitely should be. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're not. But that's going to wrap up this edition of Sports Talk with R&J. But we will be back next week talking about Super Wildcard Weekend, and we'll be previewing the semifinals of the College Football Playoff. Have a happy and safe New Year, everyone.